The Real Frank Zappa book by Frank Zappa is read by Fake Zappa. And sponsored by the Ocean Spray Beverage Corporation, which I need to tell you because it's the holiday season, that they have whole cranberry sauce and jelly cranberry sauce available at stores near you. Chapter 4, Part 3. Are we having a good time yet? Page 90. Heading for the last roundup. In 1966 and 67, the LAPD and the Sheriff's Department went to war with the freaks in Hollywood. Every weekend, people were rounded up with no warrants presented or charges stated as they walked on Sunset Boulevard, forced into sheriff's buses, driven downtown, held hostage for the evening, and let them go. All because they had long hair. The places where they used to eat, Ben Frank's on Sunset and Cantor's Deli on Fairfax, were under constant surveillance. The city government threatened to take away Elmer, Whiskey A Go-Go, Valentine's liquor license if he didn't stop booking long-haired acts at his club. There was no place left to work in Hollywood, our new home. Gail and I moved to New York in 1967 to play in the Garrick Theater on Bleecker Street. The first place we stayed before we could even find an apartment was the Hotel Van Rensselaer on 11th Street. We were living in a small room on one of the upper floors. I was working on the album cover illustration for absolutely free at the desk by the window. I remember the place being so dirty I couldn't keep all the soot off the artwork. We lived on sandwiches and coffee from Smiler's Deli around the corner. It was cold enough that a container of milk left on the outside windowsill wouldn't go bad for days. But what if you brought it back and it was covered with soot? The thugs, who were also working in the village then, tried to launch a protest against Con Ed, the suspected source of this evil, by urging concerned citizens to mail their soot snot to the head office. We were amazed at the grubbiness because we had just come from California, where we had a fairly nice house in Laurel Canyon for $200 a month with a fireplace, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a garage, and our very own patch of dirt in the backyard. There were trees around. It was sort of pretty, and we had privacy. Gail went out to look for an apartment near the Garrick and finally found a place at 180 Thompson Street, apartment 3C, right around the corner from the theater. I took a break from rehearsal and went with her to look at it. When we got to the door, we found that a wino had passed out, pissed himself, and was wedged against it. In 1967, this is what you got in New York City for $200 a month. Our new home had a bedroom, a living room, kitchenette, and a bathroom, with a view of a brick wall out the window. We lived there for several months before we found a sublet near 7th Avenue on Charles Street, the ground floor of a brownstone. It was our privilege to occupy this space during the garbage strike. The debris was piled up right outside our bedroom window. We listened to the rats at night. During the time we lived in the Thompson Street Cracker Box, My brother visited me from Los Angeles, along with Dick Barber, his friend from high school, who eventually became our road manager, and another friend, Bill Harris, now a prominent film critic. The three of them were sleeping on the living room floor. About the time I got the idea for We're Only in It for the Money album, and looking for an artist capable of creating the ultimate parody of the Sgt. Pepper cover, I heard about Cal Schnickel, a former boyfriend of the girl who was our opening act at Garrick. He came from Philadelphia and showed me his portfolio. The stuff was great, but the only way to hire him was to find a place for him to stay in New York. And guess where it was? So it was Bobby, Bill, Calvin, and Dick on the floor in sleeping bags. The summer of love. During that summer, Greenwich Village was absurd. Any rumor, no matter how stupid, could turn out to be true. So at one point, rumor had it that a hippie had killed a Marine. Stories circulated that the Marines were going to come out to the village and kill all the hippies. Everybody who was hippie looking had their eyes peeled for people who looked like Marines. Everyone figured that they wouldn't really come in dressed like Marines, so they were on the lookout for anyone with hair that was too short or who had clean fingernails. In the midst of this, we were working the Garrick 6 nights a week, 2 shows a night, and rehearsing in the afternoon. New York weather in the summertime is pretty disgusting. Summertime around the 1st of June, the air conditioner died, and the owner of the theater, David Lee Roth's dad, I'm told, decided that it would be too expensive to fix it. Picture a room like a long, narrow tunnel, actually a former art movie theater that holds 300 people, easily 102 degrees at all times, totally humid, and no air circulating. The floor of the stage had a green rug on it. When we filmed the Mr. Green Jeans video, the people on stage had stomped a bunch of vegetables and whipped cream on it, and it never got cleaned. The stuffed giraffe and the other toys we used in the show lived in a box on the side of the stage, along with chunks of dead vegetables. All organic matter in the theater had begun to reproduce itself, and it was producing a bad smell. Where's the beef? The rotten vegetables were only part of the early MOI, Mothers of Invention, entertainment statement. I once proposed the construction of an apparatus which would have been a cross between a gallows of old-fashioned shower stall. The shower curtain had been an American flag, and behind it, hanging from the gallows, was to be a side of beef at room temperature. I proposed to roll this out at the end of each show and play a fanfare and open the curtain, releasing flies into the audience. Speaking of vegetables, and not sponsored by WHATABURGER, but filmed in Texas, this is my green smoothie with ginger and lots of spinach. And the other one here is hard seltzer. Our boys in uniform. Anyways, we were in there every afternoon rehearsing. One day, 3 Marines in full dress uniform came in through the door, sat down in the front row, and didn't say anything. Page 94. I asked them how they were doing, and of course, did they want to sit in? I asked them if they knew any songs. One of the guys said that, yeah, he knew House of the Rising Sun and Everybody Must Get Stoned. I said, that's great. Would you guys like to sit in with us tonight? We just love to have Marines singing on stage with us. They said, yeah, they would. I said, go across the street to the Tin Angel, have a few drinks, and come back when the show is on. When they came back, I brought them up on stage, although it must have been against regulations for them to do this kind of thing in full dress, and had them sing Everybody Must Get Stoned. By that time, we were pretty well wrecked. So I suggested, why don't you show the folks in the audience what you guys do for a living? I handed them a big baby doll and said, suppose you just pretend that this is a gook baby. They proceeded to rip and mutilate the doll while we played. It was truly horrible. After it was over, I thanked them with a quiet musical accompaniment, showed them the ruined parts of the doll to the audience. Nobody was laughing. Jimmy's new tailor. On another occasion, Jimi Hendrix sat in with us. I didn't know him before then, and I can't remember how I was introduced to him. Probably met him at the Tin Angel. A few days later, he came to visit our cubicle on Charles Street with his friend, drummer Buddy Miles. Jimmy was wearing green velvet pants, all decked out, on his way to a party with Buddy. The only thing that Buddy said was, "Hi, Frank," after which he sat on the couch, leaned back, and passed out, snoring. They were there for about an hour and a half. Buddy had a nice nap, and Hendrix ripped his pants in the crotch while demonstrating a dance step. Gail sewed them up for him. When it was time to leave, he said, "Come on, Buddy." The snoring stopped, and they left. Sal Lombardo. One day, on my way to lunch at the TA, a guy wearing a buckskin suit in July with a black scraggly beard and hair sticking out all over the place came up to me and said, "I want to be in your band." "What do you play?" I asked. "Nothing," he answered. "Okay," I said, "you got the job." The guy's name was Sal Lombardo. Later that night, I handed him some maracas and a tambourine. He didn't get paid, but he got to be on stage and, quote, be in the band, end quote. Part of our show included the concept of nightly enforced recreation, sort of like audience participation, but more dangerous. We'd be playing something, and I'd lean over and say, "Sal, see that guy over there? Go get him." Sal would then snatch the guy out of the audience and drag him on stage. It was then my privilege to invent recreational activities for the hapless individuals, inducing them to participate. You see Sal in the video of Uncle Meat. He's the guy lying on his back with the corn cob in his mouth, having whipped cream squirted in his face during Mr. Green Jeans. That night, his entire buckskin suit was covered with real whipped cream. He never had it cleaned. You know what real whipped cream smells like on B.O. buckskin at 100+ degrees? We're talking bestiality here. When we stopped working at the Garrick, Sal went off to South America. to find some forbidden city. I saw him again about 10 or 12 years later when he showed up at a gig in Sacramento. He was operating a pizza place then. He swore he found the secret city, fill in the blank with an 11-syllable word in South America, housing untold riches, but he didn't have any way to get the stuff out. Leo and Leopold, page 96. There were two suburban Jewish guys who attended the Garrick shows relentlessly. They called themselves Leo and Leopold, not the real Leo and Leopold, but incredibly lifelike simulation. They came to at least 30 shows. At the end of our run, they came backstage, opened up their wallets, and with tears in their eyes showed me their ticket stubs. They loved the Garrick shows. One of the guys, I'm pretty sure his name was Mark Trottinger, liked to run up the aisle, jump on stage, grab the microphone out of my hand, and scream to it as loud as he could. Then he would fall on the stage, roll over like a dog, and urge me to spit Pepsi Cola all over his body. What a crowd pleaser. 10 years later, I was doing a Halloween show at the Palladium, and I looked out in the audience and thought I saw him. It had to be him. I said, "Aren't you the guy who used to..." It was him. He grew up to become a record distributor in Queens. All right, I have to say something. My guest here for this particular reading is a bear puppet I got earlier this year, and since spring I've been calling him Louie the Turkey, and he's usually my homosexual correspondent in a lot of my videos. So he's going to join me in the reading of the story of Louie the Turkey. Page 96. Louie the Turkey. Another regular was a guy named Louie the Turkey. Because of his laugh, his real name was Louis Quino. He wound up on the Lumpy Gravy album as one of the people talking about incomprehensible stuff inside a piano. We would always know when Louis was in the theater because we would hear him in the back of the room. I would invite him on stage, give him a stool to sit on, and hand him the microphone and stop the music. He would sit there and laugh at nothing. And the whole audience would just laugh with him for 5 minutes. Then we thanked him, and he'd leave. Thank you, Louie the Turkey. You want to stick around? Okay. Custom entertainment. We opened the Garrick run during Easter vacation 1967. There were lines around the block in the show. However, as soon as the school reconvened, audience plummeted. On our worst night, we had 3 paying customers. We told them we were going to give them an evening of customized personal entertainment. There was a passageway in front of the Garrick that led downstairs to the Cafe A Go-Go's kitchen. Everybody in the band went down and got hot cider and bunches of little snacks. We put towels over our arms like waiters, went back, served the audience with refreshments, and talked to them for an hour and a half. On another occasion, we had only 10 or 15 people. We asked them whether they would like to be in the band for the night. They thought it would be a good idea. So we had them our so we gave them our instruments, and the audience and sat in the audience for an hour and a half and listened to them play the show. Tom and Jerry. It was in Manny's Musical Instruments in New York sometime in 1967, and it was raining outside. A little guy came in walking, kind of wet, and introduced himself as Paul Simon. He said he wanted me to come to dinner at his house that night and gave me the address. I said okay and went there. As I walked in the door, Paul was on his hands and knees in front of what appeared to be a Magnavox stereo, the same model preferred by the slumberer from Sun Village. He had his ear right up to the speaker listening to Django Reinhardt record. Within moments, for no apparent reason, he announced that he was upset because he had to pay $600,000 in income tax that year. This was completely unsolicited information, and I thought to myself, if only I could earn $600,000. What did you have to earn in order to have to pay that much tax? Then Art Garfunkel came in, and we talked and talked. They hadn't been on the road in a long time, and were reminiscing about the good old days. I didn't realize that they used to be called Tom and Jerry, and that they once had a hit song called Hey Schoolgirl in the Second Row. I said, well, I can understand your desire to experience the joys of touring again, so I will make you this offer. We're playing in Buffalo tomorrow night. Why don't you guys come up there and open for us as Tom and Jerry? I won't tell anybody. Just get your stuff and go out there and sing Hey Schoolgirl in the Second Row. Just only play your old stuff. No Simon and Garfunkel tunes. They loved the idea and they said they would do it. They did the opener as Tom and Jerry. We played our show. And at the encore, I told the audience, I'd like to bring back our friends to do another number. Then they came out and played Sounds of Silence. At that point, it dawned on everybody that this was the one and only magnificent Simon and Garfunkel. On our way out after the show, a college-educated woman walked over to me and said, "Why did you do that? Why did you make fun of Simon and Garfunkel?" As if I had pulled some kind of cruel joke on them. What the fuck did she think had just happened? That these two superstars had just dropped in out of nowhere, and we forced them to sing Ooh, Bapaluchi Ba, she's mine. Thank you, Louie the Turkey.